Unlock the power of prompt engineering with 6 transformative techniques: zero shot, few shot, chain of thought, custom personas, sequential, and reverse engineering. Master AI-driven workflows to write, strategize, and code with precision. Gain a superpower. Shape ChatGPT's output exactly how you want, and redefine what's possible in creativity and productivity.
Hi, I'm Saad, the CEO of DeepLearnHQ, and I'm here to share about my masterclass in prompt engineering and generative AI. Having a decade of experience working in technology and finance in some of the most popular Fortune 500 companies in the world, and teaching 15,000 plus students through Udemy on data science and AI related courses. I have specifically created this course to help you equip with the age of AI. This course covers 50 sections, 300 plus lectures, covering 35 plus hours of in-depth content. It starts with the basics of ChatGPT and generative AI fundamentals, advancing into 15 to 20 different tools and frameworks that will equip you to become an AI Python programmer and create impactful projects that can help business and enterprises. With over 1 million minutes taught, 15,000 plus students, and an average rating of 4.6, our courses are trusted by learners worldwide. So join me in this masterclass by clicking the link below.
So let's start our journey by learning the basic functionalities of the ChatGPT tool. We're going to start off at chat.openai.com. If you don't want to type it out, the link is in the description below. Now, if you already have an account, you can just go ahead and log in. If you're brand new to ChatGPT, click on sign up and it's free and super fast. And once we're in, welcome to ChatGPT. Now, the interface. The actual look of the program is easy and intuitive to use. But with that said, we're going to go through everything so you feel comfortable from the very beginning on how to use this tool. The first thing we're going to do is move to the upper left corner and see that there are 2 different versions of ChatGPT. We have 3.5, which is the free version, and then we have 4, which is the premium version. Now let's start off with the free version. The free version will allow you to do pretty much anything in text format. You can generate massive amounts of content, get suggestions for your website, such as what colors to use, what to write on your landing pages, etc., etc. You can in an instant create emails that are personal for your newsletter. You can get suggested brand new recipes, learn how to write and design your job application letters, and pretty much learn anything that you're interested in learning. Basically, if it's in the text format, the free version of ChatGPT is capable of achieving that job. ChatGPT 4, however, is a significant upgrade. It's smarter, more accurate, and has a longer memory and more effective algorithms, which makes it much better at almost everything versus ChatGPT 3.5. Not only that, but ChatGPT 4 has access to internet, which means it's not limited to its trained information, but can give you current up-to-date information as well. It can also see images that you upload and answer questions that you may have about them. It can create brand new images from text alone, use plugins to create charts and transcribe YouTube videos, and have voice conversations with you to get direct voice-based translations to almost any language in the world. So with that said, I'm going to upgrade mine to ChatGPT 4 to gain access to all these latest functionalities. And if you want to do the same thing, all you need to do is click on the drop-down menu, click on GPT 4 and purchase it. Or you can go to the lower left corner, click on My Plan, and from there just upgrade to the latest version of ChatGPT. Now let's take a quick look at how the free and the premium version of ChatGPT are different and the basic functions of how to actually use this program. So the first thing we're going to do is move to the upper left corner and click on this little icon that says New Chat. That is going to create a brand new conversation with ChatGPT for us. Now you need to make sure that you select the correct version that you want to use. If you have upgraded to 4, you can go down and select ChatGPT 4. The first thing I'm going to do here is write an instruction to ChatGPT with the 3.5 version. And then I'm going to show you how the premium version of ChatGPT is going to answer the same instruction in a much better way. So let's start off with the free version. I'm going to go down here where it says Message ChatGPT. Click there and then I'm going to give it my first instruction. Whenever we write any instruction or question for ChatGPT, we call it prompt. So I'm going to write my first prompt now. And I'm going to write a 500-word article on Nelson Mandela. We have our 500-word article on Nelson Mandela from ChatGPT 3.5 ready for us. I'm going to scroll down through this slowly. You can pause the lecture so that you can read through everything. If you have paused the lecture and read through everything, you'll have gotten some sort of sense of the language used and how it's formatting the text and how it's handling these instructions that I provided it. Now let's go ahead and contrast it with the premium version of ChatGPT 4. I'm going to move to the upper left corner, create a new chat, and change the version to ChatGPT 4, the premium version. I'm going to go down, click here, and I'm going to give it the same instruction I gave to the previous version. The output is here, and I'm going to scroll through this slowly once again so that you can pause and read it. Now you're going to notice that it's smarter. It needs time to think a little bit longer, but the results are much better. You'll notice that the language that ChatGPT is using is a lot more human and a lot more in-depth. And we're going to talk a lot about how to improve these answers as we dive deeper into this tool and how to make answers more personal to you. But for now, understand that the premium version of ChatGPT has a higher critical reasoning ability. So it's able to answer the questions much better than version 3.5. Now, once you're in a conversation with ChatGPT, you're going to be stuck here with ChatGPT 4 in this specific conversation. And in this conversation, you're going to be stuck with ChatGPT 3.5. You're never able to change the versions in the same conversation. If I try to change this to 4, it will automatically open up a new chat. And in order to navigate between different conversations, I just need to click on them. Now, there's a lot of customizations you can do beyond just continuing having the conversation. If I like the result I got, but I want to change the result slightly, I can change the input prompt I provided, aka the instructions. By hovering my mouse over, you'll see the pen appearing right here, and I can click on it and then I can change my instruction. So let's say that I change it to 200 words instead of 500. Now I'm going to click on save and submit. And that is going to change ChatGPT's response. And we have a different result from ChatGPT this time with a 200-word article instead. Previous instruction and the previous result in this case are not lost though. If you look down, just below my name here, you'll see that there is a 2 out of 2. By clicking on the left arrow, I can access the previous instruction that I wrote and hence the previous response from ChatGPT. And then I can go forward again and get the latest instruction and the latest response. Now, if I don't like the response generated from ChatGPT, but I actually like the instruction, the prompt that I provided, and I just want a different response altogether from the same instruction set, what I can do is I can go down to where you see all these different commands and I can go to the farthest right and click on regenerate button. If I click on this one, it will apply this very same prompt once again and ChatGPT will simply give me a new response to the same instructions. And here is the new response. Now, once again, the previous response is not lost. If I go down below the response of ChatGPT, you will see once again it says 2 out of 2. If I click on the left arrow, I can access the previous response to this prompt that I wrote. And then I can access once again the latest one if I want. So in this way, you can keep changing your instructions and keep regenerating the response from ChatGPT, but you'll still have the history of whatever ChatGPT and you have talked about historically. And while we're going to dive deeper into this later, know that when we move over to our instruction, the prompt and change it, this is called iteration. We're iterating through our prompts to come up with a better input for the model. One more thing you will notice is that when you click regenerate, ChatGPT is going to ask you if this was a better or a worse response. It's not important that you answer. It's just that for training of the model, so it can get better in the future based on your human response. Now, there are a lot more functions that we can use in the chat itself. The first thing we can do here is we can copy the article if you really like it. By going down to different commands down here, this is the copy to clipboard. If I click here, everything is copied. I could go ahead and paste it whenever I want, wherever I want to paste it. Now, preferably in a Google document or something similar. If you're having a really good conversation and you want to share the entire conversation with someone because it has a lot of insights, you can move over to the upper right corner here and share this chat. You'll have two different options. You can share the chat anonymously or you can share it with your own name. So now if I share it anonymously and I click on copy link, open a new tab and paste it in, we can see the entire conversation we have had so far. And it's written by anonymous. So this is an amazing way whenever you're doing work and you're getting insights and you want to share it with other people, you can share it so easily within ChatGPT. As you continue to use ChatGPT, you will be having a lot of conversations. All of those conversations are going to end up in the sidebar here to the left. I strongly recommend that you do proper housekeeping from the beginning. That is, you give each conversation you have a proper name that shows what the topic is about. By always understanding what the topic is about, you can refer back to them later on. And you can also continue important conversations that you had previously. So for example here, if I want to give this conversation a name, I can click on the 3 dots. I click on rename. I'm going to call this testing ChatGPT 4. And then I'm going to go down, click on this one and 3 dots rename. And I'm going to change this to testing ChatGPT 3.5. So this is what these conversations were about. And we have just been trying out different versions of ChatGPT, so I named them accordingly. We're going to keep doing this so you can get an idea of the importance of naming your conversations correctly. So when should you be staying in the same conversation and when you should be creating a new one? The short answer is one topic per conversation. In other words, you should stay in the same conversation if you're talking about is a relevant topic where the context is relevant and the topic is the same. So if I were to do more tests specifically for ChatGPT 3.5, I would continue doing the test in that same conversation. On the other hand, if I was doing those same tests for ChatGPT 4, I will go to the ChatGPT 4 version conversation that I've specifically created for that task. However, if I wanted to have a conversation about Nelson Mandela, then I would create a new dedicated chat to talk about him. And in that chat, I will only specifically talk about Mandela. One topic per conversation. If you have a conversation with ChatGPT about the benefits of being vegetarian, and then you start asking for recipes in the same chat, ChatGPT is going to focus on vegetarian recipes. This is very important. ChatGPT remembers the context in each conversation that we have with him. So keep that in mind when trying to decide whether to start a new conversation or continue in the same one. As you're having conversations and you want a cleaner design, so you can focus on them, you can just go ahead and move to the left and click here where it says close sidebar. That is going to close the entire sidebar so you can focus on the conversation alone. Now let's open up the sidebar once again and dive a little deeper. Let's go down and click on our name here at the bottom and we're going to get multiple different options here. The first one is my plan. By clicking on my plan, you'll get to see your subscription if you have one. You can also manage your subscription. It's 20 USD per month for now. And if there is any billing issue, you can click here too. If you have an enterprise, that is a big company with a lot of people, you can go ahead and get ChatGPT Enterprise. This isn't going to be something that most of us are going to be using, so I'm going to skip this for now. The next thing we have available is called MyGPT. Now, MyGPTs in a nutshell are different personas and different programmed versions of ChatGPT itself. This section takes you to the very same place as this explore section up here. We're going to dive much deeper into this later, so let's start with the basics and move through this one step at a time. The next thing we have is custom instructions. Now, custom instructions is also something that we will be going through later. Essentially, it allows you to give ChatGPT specific information that tells you who you are and how you like your responses to be. I always like to add here, be precise and to the point, because ChatGPT tool is very verbose for me. So it helps tailor all the responses ChatGPT gives you according to your needs and preferences. Then going down, we have settings and beta. The first thing is, in the general section is the theme, which means how you want your ChatGPT design to be. It can be light, it can be dark. Use what you like. We can also go down and click on clear all chats. If I click here, that is going to delete all the chats that I've ever had on the left. Now, this is why it's important to do good housekeeping from the beginning and name your conversations according to the topic, because otherwise you're going to have hundreds of conversations here and eventually you're going to need to just delete them all because they weren't labeled properly. Moving to the left, we have the beta features, and this is going to allow more functionality to ChatGPT. What we have here are plugins. Now we can activate them from now on here. A plugin is just an extension that gives more functionality to ChatGPT, and we will dive into it later. Essentially, with plugins, you're going to learn a ton of amazing things, such as how to create audios from text inputs alone.
So what exactly is ChatGPT? Basically, ChatGPT is a type of computer program known as a language model. It understands human language and can generate text just like a person would.
How to create videos from text inputs, how to translate. How to transcribe any YouTube video, and how to book trips using Expedia and order groceries online using Instacart. Moving down to controls, first we have chat history and training. In order for the conversation to actually work well and have one topic per conversation, we want ChatGPT to remember what we have been talking about so that it can take context into account and we can have more meaningful and in-depth conversations. So I strongly recommend that you keep this activated. It also means that OpenAI, that is ChatGPT's company that made it, is going to use your information to teach ChatGPT more tricks. In other words, learn even more information. If you're an enterprise user, this is something that you can opt out of. But for us, we need to be opt-in if you want to use ChatGPT the way we do. Next, let's talk about exporting all of our data to see what OpenAI, the ChatGPT's company, have on us. This isn't something to do for everyday use. And this is for very, very specific use cases, I believe. I have never done it. I don't think I ever will. And then finally, we come to delete our account. If you ever get tired of ChatGPT, you can delete it from here. Moving on to the left, we have builder profile. Now, this topic deserves its own lecture on the different GPTs. But in a nutshell, a builder profile allows you to create your own very specific versions of ChatGPT. And then you can link them to your website and publish it in GPT Store. so that other people can download your version of ChatGPT, and when they do, your website can be displayed just down there below in the GPT. I personally believe this is going to be a futuristic way of driving traffic and leads to your website. If that is something interesting to you, we will cover it in the course as well. Next, let's download the mobile app. I recommend that you pause this lecture right now, go into your app store and download the ChatGPT app to your phone and log into your account. While there's a lot of ChatGPT lookalike apps, the correct one is the official app created by OpenAI. Once you're logged in, ChatGPT will sync across all of your devices and you'll have access to all of your conversations anywhere, anytime. Pretty amazing feature to have. And finally, you'll be happy to know that ChatGPT is not just limited to text input. You can also click here to upload files like PDFs and images and have conversations about them. ChatGPT 4 also has advanced analytic functionalities. Integrated within it has access to approximately 2000 Python libraries. This is mainly if you work with big data. So for example, if you're an instructor like me and you have a file with all your students and you want ChatGPT to find patterns among your students, who completed the course, what percent of the course was watched by your students, where are my students from, which countries do they belong to, what are the most watched lectures. I can do that using data analysis feature within ChatGPT by just simply uploading a CSV. Or if you have an e-commerce data set in a CSV and you just need to clean up the data, remove duplicates, let's say, ChatGPT can do all of that stuff now too very easily with very simple prompts. It's a feature that can make entry-level data analyst jobs obsolete according to me. Furthermore, DALL-E, the image generation model of OpenAI, is also integrated into ChatGPT paid version, which allows you to create very powerful AI images from essentially very basic text prompts. Now you know the basic functions of using the ChatGPT tool. Next, let's learn how to actually converse with ChatGPT by going through 6 different modes of conversations that I've come up with after revising my ChatGPT courses multiple times in the past 2 years. I call them the 6 modes of communication with AI. In this video, we will learn about the 6 modes of communication with the AI. The first one is the most basic and the most simple one. It's called Q&A, question and answering. The Q&A mode is very basic and very simple. You ask a question and you get an answer. The more specific your question, the more specific your answer will be. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and click in the upper left corner and create a new chat. Remember, one topic per conversation. I'm going to be using GPT-4 from now onwards. Since I'm a premium member and it will get the best answers for me, I'm going to go down and I'm going to write a very basic question here, such as, who was the President of the United States in 2018? And from this basic question, we get a basic answer. It's short and straight to the point, and it's exactly what I was looking for. Now, before we take a more specific example, I'm going to provide a good example here for the housekeeping. I'm going to move here to the left. I'm going to click here, rename it. I'm going to call it President of the United States of America. Now let's ask a more specific question and get a more specific answer out of ChatGPT. I'm once again creating a new conversation and then I'm going to write, when did the .com revolution happen and how does it influence today's economy? Not an easy question to answer. And here's the result. Notice there are 2 questions. One is quite direct and the other one is a bit abstract. And we got 2 answers within here, one for each one. So the first one is, when did the .com revolution happen? We get the answer here. And then how has it influenced today's economy? This is a much more abstract question, but we're still getting a very valid and solid answer. It's writing here, here's how it has influenced today's society. If you want to read this, pause this lecture and read through it and be impressed by the power of ChatGPT. So ask a question, get an answer. I'm going to move over to the left now and I'm going to name this chat .com revolution. The second mode is called the instructional mode. We're basically going to ask ChatGPT to perform a specific task for us. It's that simple. Ask it to do something and it will do it for you. I'm going to go to the upper left corner, start a new chat and then provide it a new instruction. Recall from our previous video that instruction is called a prompt, and I'm going to write a short poem about Christmas. Now ChatGPT is going to use its massive amount of data to create something completely unique for us, which is the incredible power GPT possesses. You can pause this lecture and read through this and be amazed by the poeticness of this AI tool. Now let's take this a little bit further and give it a more specific and difficult instruction. I'm going to start off by naming this conversation and I'm going to call it poems because this is possibly not the last time that I'm creating a poem with ChatGPT for me. Now in a new chat, I'm going to write a more difficult instruction. This time I'm going to say, give me the ingredient list along with the recipe to cook a steak. This is interesting because steak usually contains beef and there are of course millions of different ways of doing a steak. So let's see what does ChatGPT cook for us in this case. The results are here. I'm going to scroll here. You can pause this lecture if you want to read through it. Now let's say I want to take this even further. I want to adjust the specific recipe for 20 portions instead of one that ChatGPT has currently provided me. To achieve this, I have two different options. I could write it here just like this, or I can do an iteration. I can, instead of writing another prompt, go back to my original instructions, click here and then simply add those instructions in here, which is for 10 servings. Once again, recall this is called iteration. And I'm going to write here adjusted to 20 portions. And then I'm going to click save and submit. And here we have it, our steak recipe with ingredients adjusted for 20 portions now. Amazing. Once again, housekeeping item. I will rename the chat, call this recipes, and I'm just going to keep all different recipes that I go through with ChatGPT in this specific chat moving forward. The third mode that we're going to talk about now is called role-playing mode. Role-playing means that you allow ChatGPT to take on the persona of someone else. It could be someone living, fictional, dead, doesn't matter, because ChatGPT has all this trained public data information and it can recognize the pattern. If we ask it to role-play a certain persona, this is going to be the closest we get to looking at that prompt from the perspective of that specific persona we have assigned ChatGPT to. It can understand how that persona thinks, how the person would respond, and make an almost perfect simulation of that person or thing that we're trying to refer to here. Let me show you through an example. I'm going to go ahead and create a new chat and write my prompt. I'm going to write role play as Shakespeare and write a poem about climate change. And let's see what do we get. The results are in. And once again, you can pause this lecture if you want to read through it and be amazed and probably have a laugh at the same time about the reply that we got from ChatGPT this time. What you will notice if you pause and read through it is that it uses words such as "thou art a creature of our own hand." This is the typical sort of Shakespearean old-time language that it is now role-playing and impersonating for us. We can take this even further as well. We have already asked ChatGPT to role-play Shakespeare and have a conversation with ChatGPT simulating its persona. Next, what I can do is I can prompt saying, "So Shakespeare, what were some of the techniques you used when writing some of your most favorite plays?" Sometimes I've noticed that if you don't include the name of the person or the thing that ChatGPT is role-playing, it might sometimes forget its context. So just as a reminder, when you're using the role-playing mode, write in the name of whatever it is that the ChatGPT is role-playing, just to give it a reminder to get into that character now. I sent away my prompt and here are the results now. And you can once again pause the lecture and read it through and be amazed by the power of ChatGPT. The response that we got from the bot is pretty accurate in terms of the techniques Shakespeare used when writing his famous plays, like character development, use of language, themes, the structure and plots, etc., etc. Since this is a new chat housekeeping item again, I'm going to move to the left and name this conversation RP Shakespeare, RP for roleplay. Now, if this was a conversation specifically about poems, then of course I would be putting that in the poem conversation that we had previously. But this is about having a conversation with Shakespeare specifically. So I've given it its own conversation. Let me give you one more example of using even more context for a more specific outcome. I'm going to create a new conversation, and this time I'm going to prompt it by saying role play as Barack Obama. I'm going to start writing my book, but I feel unmotivated. Give me an inspiring speech to motivate me and make me work hard. And let's see what do we get. Once again, we're getting an incredible response from Obama himself, motivating me to be a hard worker. Pause the lecture if you want to read through, and I highly recommend that you do. Specifically this time, because it's going to give you a good laugh. As usual, I'll move over to the left, rename the conversation, roleplay Obama. Remember, while role-playing could be a lot of fun, but it's not only for fun. It's amazing to have ChatGPT take on the persona of someone you want to learn from or about. So if you want to learn more about Einstein or theory of relativity or how to start a startup from Steve Jobs himself, have ChatGPT take on that persona and ask questions directly from that specific person. And this goes on, whether it's philosophy or science or any topic in the world. Have fun with this and explore it in depth. Remember to activate role-playing in the first prompt in your conversation. And keep reminding it now and then if your conversation with ChatGPT turns out to be more than 10-15 prompts. And role play whatever you want, whoever you want. The fourth method that we're going to discuss next is called discussion mode. Now, discussion mode allows you to take on any topic that you want and dive deeper together with ChatGPT into it to explore it in depth and learn new things that you don't know before. It's like taking ChatGPT for a walk and discussing an idea with him. This will allow you to approach subjects from new angles, take on new perspective, and learn things a lot faster as well. Let me show you how. So I've started a new conversation and I'm going to write the prompt, let's discuss the impact of climate change on the economy. All you need to do is write, let's discuss, and that is automatically going to activate the mode of discussing something back and forth with ChatGPT. Once I send this prompt, I get a very thorough response. And if you want to read it through, you can just pause the lecture. But remember, the foundation of any discussion is of course actually discussing something back and forth. So I have read the output already and based on the text, drafted a response to keep the discussion ongoing. I will say, what sort of new jobs will climate change create and why? Continue the discussion. Once again, you can pause the lecture and read through it if you want. Now, one of the things that ChatGPT is bringing up in its responses is the job displacement. So I'm going to continue the discussion about that topic specifically, but slightly change the direction in which the conversation is headed right now by giving it the following prompt. What sort of new jobs do you think climate change will create and why? Pause and read if you want. Discussion mode provides an incredible way of having a continuous ongoing discussion on any topic with ChatGPT. And we're getting some serious insights here as well from ChatGPT, as it talks about different types of jobs that will be created in brand new industries due to climate change, such as environmental changes, carbon taxes, and so on and so forth. So these discussions can be extremely thought-provoking. Now let's take another example of how you can use these discussions to learn something or do something completely new that you have never done before. But before we do that, housekeeping item, let's name this conversation climate change discussion and go on and move to a new topic and conversation. Now I'm going to start the discussion mode to learn a new skill or a language, and I'm going to write the prompt, I'm trying to learn Spanish, have a very basic discussion with me in Spanish to help me improve my language skills. The discussion was essentially allows you to have any form of discussion. You can learn a language, you can learn about a specific subject, you can get ideas for certain topics, you could have conversations about a pay raise. Literally, the sky is the limit. So let's stick with the learning Spanish prompt for now, and I'm going to send it away, and here's our response. It's saying, of course, I would be happy to help improve your Spanish skills. Let's start with something simple. How are you today? And my Spanish is so basic that this is embarrassing, but I'm going to try and write ¿Cómo estás?, which I believe means how are you? I'm getting the translation. I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing well. Thank you. So basically, ChatGPT responding to my initial prompt. Which aspect of Spanish would you like to practice today? Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, or something else? I have no idea how to answer this in in Spanish. So I'm going to write, help me out with my reply. I'm not that good at Spanish yet, just to keep on the discussion going. And I'm getting some more guidance here from ChatGPT. And in this way, you can go on and keep learning the new language that you're interested in. One more tip that I can give you here is to combine two different modes together. For instance, have a discussion while role playing. So for example, you could say, you are Einstein, discuss and explain the theory of relativity to me. And if it comes back with scientific theories beyond our capacity to understand, because we don't have that deep knowledge of physics, what we can do is you can assign yourself a role as well during the discussion. Let's say by adding to the same prompt, I'm a high school student, discuss based on my mental caliber. And now if you paused and read through it, you will notice that ChatGPT significantly dumbed down the definition of the theory of relativity specifically for me. And I can further drill down on this and say, explain the theory of relativity to a 5-year-old. And it will further dumb it down and explain it in a very, very basic way. So this is how you can use discussion mode in multiple ways and also combine different modes together to make the most out of this ChatGPT tool. The fifth mode that we're going to discuss is what we call the simulation mode. Simulation mode allows you to create any scenario and practice it before it actually happens in the real world. This could be, for example, about a dispute with an angry customer, a sales interaction that you don't know how to handle, a pay raise discussion with your boss. Literally any sort of situation that you want to explore, that you can think of, that you are stuck with, you can talk to ChatGPT about it and explore different ideas and solutions to it. So let's dive into this and go through a few examples. I'm going to create a new chat and I will give it a prompt saying, simulate an angry customer email about a late delivery. A very basic, simple prompt to start with. Very simple. Anytime you want to activate this mode, you just need to write simulate in the beginning of your first prompt, and it's going to prove to be a very powerful strategy that will allow you to start practicing on these difficult events and scenarios that you can't wrap your head around with, and make you a lot more prepared for those situations. So now when I send out this prompt of the angry customer email, this is what I got. Here's a simulation of an angry customer complaint. We actually have a sample, of course, a fictional customer complaint, but something that we can work with. Now, there are two ways to approach the simulated scenario. One is to write an actual reply and then have a back and forth with ChatGPT, and then you can start getting some feedback on how to improve. The second way is to right away ask ChatGPT on how do I best deal with this situation and see how would ChatGPT deal with the complaint that it created for us. So to do that, I will write this prompt, what is the best way to approach this claim? And we will start getting some feedback right away. As always, pause and read if you want. ChatGPT's feedback in this specific case is pretty accurate. It is asking us to listen to the customer, actively acknowledge customers' feelings, apologize sincerely, and provide a clear explanation. And trust me, it could literally be any situation that you want to simulate and learn how to deal with. And ChatGPT will do the job for you in most cases. Now let's take another example where we are participants, and I'll show you how to work with that sort of simulation. I'm going to move to the left and I'm going to name this Simulation Customer Complaint. Create a new conversation. And here's my new prompt. Simulate a car owner. I'm trying to negotiate a good deal on a car. We disagree on the price. He's harsh, but a fair negotiator who wants no less than $50,000 for the car, and I'm not willing to go above $40,000. So the first thing we're getting here is the simulated scenario with my preconceived answers already. So we have the car owner. We're getting a sort of a setup of the simulation of the car owner and what the person's position is. And then us as the buyer and our position. And here is the actual negotiation. You can again pause this lecture and read this through if you want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell ChatGPT that I want to be an active participant in this negotiation. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to write, let me negotiate with you. You are the owner and I will be me and answer for myself. And I'll send it away. And then ChatGPT writes, absolutely, let's begin the negotiation. As the car owner in this scenario, I'm seeking no less than $50,000 for my car. Please feel free to start a negotiation with your offer or any questions you might have about the car. Let the fun begin. I'm going to respond by saying, I have seen the car. The engine is making weird noises. Just getting the engine fixed will already set me back by $10,000. I cannot go above $30,000 for the car. And I send it away. The negotiation goes on and ChatGPT, as the car owner, says, I understand your concern about the engine. Getting it fixed can indeed be costly. However, this car's engine is not that bad from my checks and tests. And then it's trying to make its case along those lines. Pause the lecture and read through if you want. Now, of course, the more context that you're going to give to ChatGPT about the actual simulated response, the more in-depth the simulation will be. And this can be really thought-provoking at times and a very useful practice to have. Highly recommended. If I want to continue, I will just keep going on in this simulated discussion. Lastly, housekeeping item, renamed it to car negotiations. And this brings us to the sixth and the final mode, which I call the brainstorming mode. This is where you allow ChatGPT to generate tons of ideas on any given topic for you based on its vast knowledge base. This mode helps you completely unleash the creative potential of ChatGPT. This could really be used for anything, such as finding a new business idea, writing job applications, developing a character in your creative writing journey, helping a friend out who's in trouble in the real world. Basically, any situation where you don't know what to do and looking to explore options available at hand. Let me show you how. So I'm going to go into a new chat and then I'm going to prompt brainstorm startup ideas that can help us fight climate change and send it away. The results are in and it provides startup options from a variety of sectors to start, including renewable energy solutions, sustainable agriculture, reforestation projects, carbon tax, etc., etc. If you've ever been in the business world, you know how difficult it is to come up with genuinely good business ideas. This is just an insane shortcut. So if you have any business interest, I strongly recommend you to use this. But even for your job, if you're an employee, use this to improve the performance at your work. If you don't have a job, but you're trying to apply for a job, use this for your job application. Brainstorm ideas on how to make your job applications better, how to make your resume better, how to make your cover letter better. The applications are endless. Now let's take another example. I'm going to move over to the left and I'm going to rename it to startup ideas related to climate change and then start a new conversation. This time my prompt will be brainstorm ideas for Etsy digital product store. I'm looking to sell digital products within $5 to $20 price range that I can create using generative AI, text and art tools. And I need product where I can avoid severe competition. Now notice this is a much more specific prompt versus the previous one. I'm looking for something very specific. Digital products for an Etsy store within a specified price with less competition that I can create using ChatGPT and Midjourney. And even after providing such a specific constrained prompt, ChatGPT came back with astonishing, amazing suggestions. Once again, pause and read through if you want. Next, I'm going to show you one of the craziest functions ever, in my opinion, that you can use with ChatGPT. It's super simple, but one of the most beneficial ones according to me. Let's imagine that from the list of the options of the digital products that ChatGPT provided us, we don't like anything and we want to explore more options. All I have to do is just type, give me more. And it goes on generating more digital product examples for me that I might be interested in for my Etsy store. This is really one of the few cases in life where you can ask for more and just be given it. So super powerful prompt to use. Whenever you're getting something you really like and you're enjoying it and you just simply want more of it, you can just tell ChatGPT to give you more and it will. Now, once again, you can pause the lecture and read through these replies that I'm getting from ChatGPT. And if you do that, you'll notice that the products are so niche now. They're so unique, it is incredible. Please keep in mind, it's not all about business and job. Let me show you how to use the brainstorming mode for an actual real life situation that you might find really useful and also really specific. But before we go there, let's do the housekeeping first. We're going to rename this to Etsy products, move on to the next prompt in a new conversation. And now I'm going to create a new scenario where I need some brainstorming for a real life situation. So I'm going to give it a prompt. I'm having 10 friends over tonight and I'm cooking for them. 2 of them are vegan and 1 has gluten intolerant. Tough crowd to please. Please suggest me dishes that can cater to the needs of all my friends by brainstorming ideas for both dinner and the dessert. The results are in. So we have our different options for dinner specifically catering to the dietary requirements I listed in my prompt. And then we also have a couple of options for dessert, which also adhere to the same constraints of vegan dishes that I referred to in my instructions. Now I'm going to write a follow-up prompt here where I'm going to ask for the tutorial so that I can actually create these meals that it has told me about. So I'm going to write, I want the spaghetti with vegetables for dinner and I want the chocolate mousse for dessert. Give me the full ingredients list for shopping and then complete tutorials on how to make them. Remember that I'm cooking for 10 people. And here's my answer. If you want to check it out more in depth, as always, just pause the lecture. We have the ingredients list for both the pasta and the mousse now for 10 people. That means that we now exactly know what to shop for and which stores we would need to go to. And if we scroll down further, we have tutorials for cooking, both pasta and the mousse as well. Everything we have asked for, we have gotten it now. And now ChatGPT has enabled us to have this evening with these difficult combination of gifts and make it successful within the dietary restrictions of all my friends very successfully. Moving on over to the left, I want to rename this, but actually I like the default name ChatGPT assigned to this chat. So let's keep it that way. So far, as part of bookkeeping, we have been renaming and saving our chats. But one more option is to go to the left here and just click on delete chat, because you might come across scenarios when you have finished the conversation and you're probably never going to use that conversation again. So it's always about good housekeeping. OpenAI might archive and delete the chat for you in a couple of weeks. Might as well delete it yourself if you're not going to use it further. Now you have been through the 6 modes of communication with AI. And if you look to our left here, look at all these amazing conversations we have already had in this short amount of time. There is so much data to be gathered. There are so many problems to be easily solved using ChatGPT. Truly, the sky is the limit. Using this in our everyday life at work, for your business, if you have it, and for fun, there is so much to be gained. Now, before we move on and learn more, and I promise you there is a ton more left to learn, I just want to mention that ChatGPT is being developed constantly. The ChatGPT UI has been changed at least 5 times since its inception already. So if you want to stay up to date, subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I run an AI tutorial channel specifically for this reason. One more thing I want to highlight here is that I did not use the Bing feature to search internet while going through the modes of communication with AI. But you can use that if you have access to the premium version of ChatGPT while working with different modes. For instance, I could tweak my last prompt to say, find me the best recipe for vegan mousse online. And now it will use the internet as well to fetch the best response for me and not just rely on its pre-trained data. So just by using ChatGPT 4, you will automatically have ChatGPT surfing the web when it needs to for you. Everything is just getting easier and easier with AI. There is a lot to learn, such as how to create images, how to have conversation about images, how to learn about different GPTs and AI agents, data and analysis, voice conversations, creating digital products with ChatGPT and other AI tools. It's all coming up next. I think you'll love it. See you in the next video.
In this video, let's talk about building a robust, holistic prompt structure that can help with our ChatGPT needs.
one prompt structure that can help us produce all different types of content and tasks that we want ChatGPT to accomplish for us, so that you will not need another one. Now, after creating 5 to 6 courses related to generative AI and teaching more than thousands of students, what I've realized is that these are the 6 main components that go into the prompt structure, which are task, context, example, persona, format, and tone. Keep in mind, these are not compulsory to have in each and every prompt. Some of these can be good to have, and that's why the hierarchy matters here. So task and context are mandatory, and I would highly recommend you to keep them in your prompt each and every time. Whereas persona, format, and tone can be considered optional elements, and it's good to have but not necessary. I'm going to start with a very basic prompt which has context, I am fat, and give me a gym plan. And GPT will be smart enough to give me an answer based on the context here, which is I am fat, and give me a gym plan, which is my task here. Now, if I run the same prompt, but this time I'm only going to say I am fat, which is just the context, GPT will not be able to figure out what I'm exactly looking for in this case. But on the other hand, if I say give me a gym plan, that would work because I have provided a specific task for GPT form. This is the reason why task is higher up in the order than all the rest, because without task, your prompt can't work. But without context, maybe it can. Lastly, I would like to mention, don't overfit. If something doesn't fit, if the element doesn't apply in your specific prompt scenario, don't use it in that example and move on. Now, let's go through each one of them one by one and understand them in more detail. Now, the task usually refers to the action verb that you use in your prompt. Write, create, analyze, discuss, brainstorm, so on and so forth. Now, the task could be a very simple task such as write me a 100-word blog on World War II, or it could be a multi-step task such as find me the best 10 seller books on World War II, summarize the key points for each one, create a report for me on World War II, so essentially providing 3 different tasks in one. Next, let's talk about context. Now, the problem with context is that essentially there could be an infinite amount of content related to that topic that could be provided as content. So your job as a prompt engineer is not to provide all the information, but only the relevant information. So it's more about crunching down and summarizing the most relevant information and putting that into your input prompt. And the way I would suggest you do it is to think about 3 questions in every scenario. And I will show you this by an example. So let's go back to our previous example. And our starting prompt was, I am a 70 kg male. Give me a 3-month training program. Here, 3-month training program is my task, whereas 70 kg male was the basic context I provided. Now, I'm going to provide it 3 more variables. One is the background relevant in this situation, the outcome or how the success looks like, and third, the environment or the audience that I'm in right now. Now, the user background in this case will now be, I'm a 70 kg male looking to put on 5 kilograms of muscle mass over the next 3 months. I only have time to go to the gym twice a week and 1 hour each person. My 70 kg becomes further user background. My success is 5 kgs of muscle mass, and the environment is that I want to go to the gym twice a week, 1 hour sessions each. And now when I run this prompt, I get a much more precise and customized, personalized answer based on my specific requirements. Pause and read if you're interested. And now our 100-day plan is ready. The next prompting technique that I want to talk about now is examples. Now, from all the research that has been done on large language models, it's a very simple conclusion that every researcher reaches. The more examples you provide of the output you want, the better job LLM will do in creating that output for you. It's just like working with humans. If you train a human on what kind of output you want, the human will get better and better over time in providing you that sort of an output. So that's the exact same idea with examples. The more examples you provide, the more ChatGPT learns to answer the question in that specific way. So now I'm going to teach ChatGPT to write the resume bullets by providing an example of a template here. So what I'm doing is I have a few resume bullets from my resume, and I told ChatGPT use this template to update the resume bullet points below. Accomplished X by doing Y, that results in Z. Now, if I want, I can switch it to a different template that I want, for instance, the star template. And now GPT will convert these bullet points based on the template that I provided, based on the example that I provided. GPT came back and updated the bullets exactly the way I expected it. Next, I can also give an example of a context of a reference document to use when writing an answer. So in this case, I uploaded a sample resume and I said, based on my resume, write me an answer for the interview question. What is my biggest weakness? Use the STAR framework, situation, task, action, and result instead of a long form interview answer. I just added it to get my answer concise so that I don't have to read a lot of it. So now GPT is trying to give me two different answers. You'll come across with this now and then where OpenAI is trying to give you two answers and get your output on which one is better so that they can train the model for future use case. Now, based on my experience, ChatGPT will go on and write the situation, task, action, and result and provide me with the information that I need in this case. Now, another way to use example is to provide a sample example and ask ChatGPT to write in exactly the same. Here, I'm saying write me a job description for the same role in my company using the example provided. And I provided the name of my company, which is mrchatgpt.ca. If you want to visit and look at the videos and the resources that I've published there outside the courses. And here's the LinkedIn post about a job description job that I was looking at. So if I provide this link, start again. So now this time GPT will create a job description which will be very similar to the job role here. And this one contained a lot of HRE words. So that's what I expect here GPT to do as well. The fourth element in the prompt structure on our list is persona. And persona essentially means who do you want the AI to be in that specific scenario to be able to help out you the most. And I can think of three ways that you can answer this. You can ask it to be an expert, you can ask it to be a celebrity, or you can ask it to be something completely fixed. If you're injured, you want it to act like an experienced doctor and give you advice accordingly. If you're working on a data analysis project, you want someone with a lot of data analysis experience so it can guide you and train you in the right direction. If you're working on your resume, you want it to be a hiring manager who can provide you feedback and update your resume and cover letter in your interview strategy. So depending on the job at hand, you can call in ChatGPT to be an expert on that thing and do the job that way. The next thing you can ask ChatGPT to be is emulate the role of a specific celebrity. Now, this works in specific situations only for me. For instance, if I want product market fit analysis, I can ask ChatGPT to be Steve Jobs. Similarly, if I want help from Warren Buffett, I'm going to ask questions about fundamental investment analysis. I won't ask him about how to fix my tap, right? So based on the topic at hand, you can call in the relevant celebrity to give you mentorship and advice in that scenario. And GPT does this really, really well. You should try it out definitely. Lastly, if you want advice on a YouTube content, you can ask it to be Ali Abdal. Now, the third way you can think of using ChatGPT is to be something completely fictional. Like you can ask it to be Jesus or God and give you advice accordingly. Or in this example, I'm going to ask it to be Alfred to my Batman and write an email to James Gordon asking for update on the crime rates in Gotham City. Something completely functional, but GPT will be able to emulate that scenario and write me an email similar to the style of Alfred from Batman. Alfred Pennyworth, personal assistant to Bruce Wayne. Now, there are three things to note about formats. First of all, there is a lot of variety of different formats that are available. All you need to do is close your eyes and think, what is the ideal format that you want to see your output? If the answer is bullet points, ask ChatGPT to give you that. If the answer is paragraph format, ask it to do that. Checklist, email, cover letter, resume, whatever the format be, specified in the prompt and it will do the job for you. The second thing to note is that you can use format in key subtle ways. For instance, here I have a report from Bain & Company which talks about the emerging technology of generative AI. First, I provided it context saying, I just received this lengthy report on AI from one of my students. First, give me the three key takeaways and then summarize the main points under each one. So this is my multitask in this one and write a report for me. This is again my task, but here this is where I talk about format using H2 as section headers. And now when ChatGPT delivers the report for me, it will make sure that all the headings are in H2 template. And as expected, GPT does a great job of finding out three major key points from the report and summarizing them for me using the H2 as headline. Another smart way of using format is to ask GPT to make the changes that you're doing bold, italics, or underline so that it's easy to follow through. So just to give you an example, I'm going to say here, make this first person. Bold changes you. So now as it's going to start talking in the first person as I and me and us, it will continue to bold the changes it's making. So here you can see it made it, I have noticed bold is categorized by bold because these are the changes it's making. So making it very difficult for me to follow through by updating the format in a specific way. Now, last but not the least, let's talk about tone. Now, tone could be happy, excited, motivated, angry, and there are numerous combinations. And based on the tone that you provide ChatGPT, the writing will be highly impacted by it. Now, in a professional setting or when you're working, you might come up with scenarios where you don't know exactly what sort of tone are you going to go with. So a good way to think about this is to think about the feeling that you want to convey with your writing. And you can ask ChatGPT as well to help you out. For instance, I can say, I'm going to write an email to a group of professionals. I have started working with them recently and I want to be taken seriously by. So this is how I'm defining my thinking here. I'm saying I want to be taken very seriously. Give me 5 keywords that I include in my input prompt to ChatGPT for the tone to follow while writing. We'll cover similar techniques later in the course when we talk about reverse engineering a prompt, but that's what we're trying to do here. We're saying there is a specific type of feeling that I want to do. Reverse engineer the right keywords for the prompt for me. And now what I expect GPT to do is to come back with a list of keywords that will fit the description of very seriously. Formal, respectful, concise, automative, authoritative, and thoughtful. Now, if I don't like this, I can always ask for more, or whatever I like, I can pick them up and use them when I'm building my prompt structure to emulate that specific tone of voice in my writing. Now that we have gone through all 6 elements of a prompt structure, let's bring it all in by creating one massive good prompt that contains everything that we have studied so far in this lecture. So my prompt is going to be something like this. I start with a persona element. I say, you are a senior marketing manager at Bank of Montreal. That's where I work, by the way. Context example. You have just unveiled the latest credit card in collaboration with Apple. It's called Apple Credit Card and received 1,000 pre-orders, which is 200% higher than the target. I provided the relevant context and example to ChatGPT, specific points relating to audience, achievement, and the environment. Next is my output, the email. So I defined the type of the output I want. Should include a project background, business results section, and end with a section thanking the products and engineering team. So this is also kind of an output plus an example template plus the context. So a couple of things merging together here. Next, I talk about tone. Use clear language, be concise, write an exciting and energetic friendly tone. And lastly, the task, which is essentially to write an email to my boss sharing. Now, if I let this prompt go, I will get very clear, concise, written email based on the information that I've provided. So let's take a pause and read through the email and understand what it's saying. GPT comes back with the email that I expected from it. It has 3 sections, providing the project background, business results, and the acknowledgements, as I mentioned in the prompt. But if you pause and read it, you would have realized that this is still very generic AI content. I can further improve this by providing more examples. And that's what I want to talk about next. So same prompt. So persona is the same. The context is the same. We're still talking about the credit card with 1,000 pre-orders and 200% higher than target achieved. The task is still the same. Writing email to my boss, sharing the news. But now in example, we're going to be further down and we will say emulate the writing style of the example provided below. And here is the writing style that I copied from an email of Ali Abdal, who's one of the famous YouTubers who talks in a very informal tone about very complex business topics. So I copied his writing style, and now what I expect is, now if I give this prompt to GPT, what I expect is that my answer will have an informal tone to it, although it will adhere to all the other elements of the prompt structure. Specifically, when it comes to the tone, it's going to be very informal tone, just like humans will write it, because now I'm giving it a human example and making it right in that specific scenario. Just to give you an example, I really have to shout out to the product and engineering teams for pulling off something this spectacular. The dedication, creativity, and hard work have truly paid off, crafting a product that's not just a credit card, but a leap in the future of the financial service. Let's keep the momentum going and continue to aim for a star. Thanks a ton for your leadership and support in making this dream a reality. So now it doesn't sound like AI generic content. We have been able to emulate the writing style of Ali Abdal by providing his email as an example, while adhering to the prompt structure and making sure all our elements are there. So very powerful writing technique that can definitely help you out in coming up with high quality writing output. In this video, I want to talk about the power of ChatGPT as a helper in terms of writing programs and code. Now, this lecture applies to you whether you are a coder or you're completely new. If you know coding well, then this is your chance to increase your productivity by 10. Coding job that used to take you 10 hours to do because you had to go to Google and Stack Overflow and here and there to get the right type of code, copy, paste it, edit it, and run it. Now you can save lots and lots of hours by telling ChatGPT to write the code for you. All you need to do is learn how to prompt it right so that it gives you the code that exactly the code that you are looking for. On the other hand, if you're completely new to coding and you have never done it before, this is your chance to learn. Because now, thanks to these LLM models, you don't really need to understand how the underlying syntax of these coding languages work. All you need to do is understand the logic behind the code and how you can break it down into steps and get the code written from ChatGPT. And even in that process, ChatGPT can tremendously help you out by teaching you at each step what needs to be done next. And if you run into errors, you can paste those errors into ChatGPT to and it will help you understand what the error was. With that in mind, in this lecture, we're going to cover and build 3 different prompts. First, we'll create a hangman game, which is essentially a guess the next word game where you get a limited number of attempts to guess what the word is, and you can guess the alphabets which are included in the word. Next, we'll create a word count app. If you recall from the previous lectures, we asked ChatGPT 3.5 to give us the word count and it failed to do it. This time we're going to ask GPT to give us the code so that we can run it in Google Colab and create our app for us outside of Chat. And lastly, we're going to learn how we can leverage ChatGPT to create HTML and CSS pages for our landing page websites and how do we tweak them and end. So to start with the first project, let's start with the hangman. I gave ChatGPT a very simple prompt saying, explain the hangman game. Explain step by step to a non-coder the logic of writing the code for hang. And it comes back with a list of steps. First it says, set up the game. Then it says, start guessing, update the game state. What does this mean? So if I guessed right, then it needs to update one of the letters in the game. If I guessed wrong, then it needs to be counted as one of the failed attempts. And I get a limited number of attempts before I. Plus, it suggests additional features like the difficulty of the game if you want to choose. Should it directly move to the next game and give us a new word once the game is over, and so on and so forth. Next, what I did was I asked it, write the code for me to be able to play the game using Google Colab. Now, if you don't know Google Colab, don't worry, just go to your Chrome browser and type Colab. The first link that will open up will be from the Google official website, and essentially all Google Colab is a online Python environment provided to you by Google. So you don't have to download and spend hours creating your own Python environment. If you're new, this is the best place to start. Open a new notebook, copy paste the code and start running it right. So I will not even go into the detail here to learn the game and understand the code in terms of what it has done here. All I need to do is copy the code, paste it here, and I run it. And now it's asking me to make a guess. Let's go with A and E because you always touch the vowels first. U, O, go with S, A, L, and I lost the game. The word was mystery this time. So very basic example of how to create a hangman game within Google Colab using ChatGPT for the programming. Next, let's try build the word count app. This time I gave my prompt as create a word count app with a button for me inside Google Colab. Remember, I always mention inside Google Colab because I want ChatGPT to give me the code accordingly so that I can run it within the Google Colab environment. This time once again, it gives me a bunch of code, actually in 2 snippets this time. All I need to do is copy paste the code. Side note, if you want to understand how the code is written, you can always go back and ask it on ChatGPT that I'm new to coding and I'm trying to understand. Can you help me understand what you wrote? And you can actually copy bits and pieces of it, paste this part here and ask it, can you explain me this part specifically? And it will do the job of doing that for you. So for now, I will copy the 2 snippets and I will paste them in a new workbook. And now if I run the code, it's making an error because I made a mistake here. Now it's asking me to type in some words. So I will say this is Saad. If I click on count of words, my answer should be 3. And that's the answer I get. So my word count app. Very simple, basic, powerful technique of learning how to code and coding out your own projects using Coder. Next, let's talk about HTML and CSS files. So here I specifically said new job because I did not want ChatGPT to think that we're working on the same word count app. I wanted it to know that we're starting with a new project. Now I said, let's create an HTML page for landing page. So I'm creating a website page, a landing page for my website in HTML format, so .html file. And I said, I want 3 sections. I want a header, I want text, and I want a bullet. And I want you to fill in the text or related to prompting that. So GPT goes and creates the HTML structure for me. I can copy paste this from here and I can paste it in a text file and change the file format to .html, which will do the job for me. But I'm lazy, so I asked it, I need a downloadable link. And GPT does exactly that for me and gave me a link to work with. Now, if I open this link, this is exactly what I see. And that's what I asked for, a header. And then 3 sections. One is a bullet list about prompting guide and one is a basic list. So it's working the way I expect. Next, I asked it to update the CSS for me. What is CSS? CSS is the element of a website that controls the design and the format and the colors and all those formats. So I said, add a CSS element to it. I want Poppin font, which is a specific type of font, and red color. So my font should be in red color now. Now, if I go and see the new version, this is exactly what I wanted. The font is Poppin and the color has been updated to red. The last thing that I want to talk about here is that when you try coding yourself, you will run into situations where you will make mistakes. So if that is the case with you, you can always use ChatGPT to correct your code for you. Let me show this to you with an example. Let's say I added these 3 words intentionally here to make sure that my code. Now what I can do is I can copy the code and the error it gave into ChatGPT. So here I copied the code and then I copied the error. Without providing any other instruction, GPT was able to understand that the problem exists at this word, widgets 1 to 3, and that's exactly what I messed up here. And it tells me an alternate code that can help me do the job. This is extremely powerful, guys. GPT is the expert coding mentor that you always wanted. Even with 3.5, the complexity of code that it can do for you is immense, and it's one of the greatest abilities of ChatGPT. So do try it out, and if you have any issues, shoot me a message. I'll try my best to help you out. In this lecture, I want to talk about specific prompting techniques that might come in handy in different specific situations that you might end up in. And these prompting techniques that we will cover in this lecture are 0, 1, and few shot prompting, chain of thought prompting, reverse engineering a prompt, sequential prompting, and signal prompting. Now, without any further breaks, let's dive into the first one, which is 0 to few shots. Now, 0 shot prompting allows the model to generalize without any label data, whereas while few shot leverages several examples to adapt the model quickly to the kind of the output that we're looking for. So essentially what it means is that in 0 shot, we're going to ask a question without providing any reference examples. In 1 shot, we will provide exactly 1 example. And in few shots, we'll provide more than 1 example. It could be 2 or it could be 1,000 examples. And the idea is that more examples of expected output we provide to the model, the more customized and personalized answer we will get in that specific direction that we send the model to in our output example. Now let's understand this through an example. I'm going to start by asking a very simple question, create a headline for this article, and then I provided the article. The article talks about Australia's COVID-19 lockdown, which was countrywide. GPT comes back and gives me a headline saying Australia extends nationwide lockdown amid Delta variant surge, cases rise to 107. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a sample example first with a sample output, and then ask the same question. So here, first I provide an example of article input. This article specifically talks about large fire that has devastated hundreds of homes in California. Then it gives us the expected output of this headline, which will be wildfires in California due to powerful winds, sparse conditions destroys the ecosystem. And then I said, okay, now create headline for this article, and I provided the same article that we gave in the first prompt about Australia COVID-19 countrywide lockdown. This time ChatGPT came back with a slightly different tweak to the same headline. It says Australia extends lockdown as Delta variant cases climb to 107. Over here, it was the same thing except the word nationwide, amid. So a slightly different tweak to the same title. Now GPT comes back with the title of the headline once again, and based on the example that I provided, it's slightly different. It doesn't use the word nationwide or amid, and the cases rises is changed to cases climb based on the example headline that we have provided this time. Now in our third shot, which is the few shot, this time what I'll do is I'll provide more than 1 example. So first example is the first example here is the same, a large wildfire in California. I changed the headline specifically to a very short one, and I ended it with an emoji, wildfires in California. Next, one talks about a Brazilian researcher that found a herbivorous dinosaur, which is 98 million years old, and it's one of the biggest ones. And here again, I provided a very short headline, ended with an emoji, just like in the first case. And then I post ChatGPT the same question, create a headline for this article, which is the same Australian article about COVID-19. So if I copy this example now and I paste this into GPT, now in the output, you will see that GPT was able to understand the kind of the information I was looking in the output based on my example outputs. It used the Australian flag as an emoji here because there was an emoji in the previous cases. And because these were considerably very shrunk, comprehensive headlines, it tried doing the same thing versus the original headlines. and from the previous examples, Australia's lockdown extended to fight Delta outbreak. So in this way, by providing a few examples, I was able to tweak the output in the direction that I wanted the model to go into. So one of the questions that I regularly get from my students is when to use zero-shot prompting and when to use few-shot prompting. And the way I would suggest you think about it is that you start every task with a zero-shot prompt, and if you think that the output is not aligned with what you're looking for, then you can move on to a few short examples and get the output aligned. If you specifically look at it, few short examples could be critical when you want to improve the accuracy and the quality of the output, where the task is very complex and LLM is struggling to understand. So providing examples might help in that case. When you have a very specific idea, so providing that example idea is great because then the model knows that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do now. And when you want to reduce the uncertainty and generate consistent results, for example, in our last example, if I want the emoji to be there in the headline every time, I can either write it down, always make sure there is an emoji in the end, or I can provide a few example emojis by giving it a few example headlines. So in this way, I can be certain that because I trained it on emoji examples, emoji will always be there. So if you need consistency and want to avoid uncertainty in your answers, then examples would be the best suited there too. Prompting technique 2 that I want to talk about next is called chain of thought prompting. And here the idea is that when the model is struggling getting the right answer, try decomposing the task into smaller steps so that if it cannot understand the big project well enough to execute it in one go, it might be able to do it if you break it down into smaller steps and ask it to complete one step at one time. Now let's look at it through an example. I am specifically going to use ChatGPT 3.5 in this case because I want ChatGPT to fail and show you how chain of thought prompting can really help in specific scenarios. And this is the prompt that I'm giving ChatGPT in this case. How many words does this text contain? And it's the same Australia COVID article that we're getting the headline for. Now GPT will go do its job and give me a number, and it comes back saying 74. Now, just because I checked it online using a different tool and the answer should actually be 75 words. This is an example of hallucination. GPT is very confidently giving you the wrong answer here. So beware of this first of all. And now let's look at how chain of thought prompting can help us solve this problem. All I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do the same job again, but this time do it step by step. So this time what it does is it starts listing down each word separately in a separate line. So it starts with Australia has prolonged its countrywide lockdown. And it goes on and on till the end of the list. And then it counts the number of words that it has, which ends in 75. And now it comes up with the right answer of 75, which is exactly what we were looking for. So just by telling ChatGPT to perform a task step by step, we were able to tweak the output and get the right answer because now it had the ability to think as a chain of thought which led to the right answer. Now, just out of curiosity, the reason I didn't ask ChatGPT 4 to do the same job is because GPT 4 will not make a mistake. Instead of using its own LLM available capability to count the words, it's actually writing a piece of code using the advanced analytics feature, which you have available here. If you see closely analysis, and essentially writes this word count through a function of text.split and gets you the answer of 75. So that's why I specifically used 3.5 in that case, because I wanted to show that LLM by itself might not be able to do that job without the help of the Python code. Now, let's go through another example of chain of prompting and let's talk about creating a product. So let's say we want to create a digital product, for instance, a keto diet informational guidebook. Now, I can just say, write me a book on keto diet, but this would not give me a very comprehensive, good, high quality output. What I'll get is a very generalized, vague book on the topic. GPT-4 was smart enough, though, to understand that first we'll need the table. Now let's understand this concept of chain of thought prompting through a practical example. Let's say we want to write a book, a small informational guidebook on a topic like keto diet. Now, if I go to ChatGPT and I give it a prompt like, write me a book on keto diet, what it would do is, it would write a list of contents, table of contents, and then based on that, I can tell it to expand on any specific topic or chapter that I want. For instance, I can say expand on chapter 1, and it can go on and write me the content for chapter 1. So a big problem broken down into table of contents and outline, and then broken down into a chapter, and then you can write the chapter. Now, a much powerful way of doing this would be to use specific, authentic, credible sources from the internet on keto diet, merge them up, get their summaries, and then create our table of contents from there. So the more time you spend on research and extracting the right data, there is a higher chance that you'll end up with a higher quality output, and you will not end up with vague and generalized statements in your book. So one way of doing that would be that I can just go to ChatGPT 4 and say, give me bestseller books on keto diet. And I can ask GPT next to provide the summary for each one, their table of contents, and that would provide a decent benchmark for me before I start writing. The next prompting technique that we're going to discover is reverse engineering a prompt. And this has specifically been very useful for me when I've been trying to write with ChatGPT. Teaching GPT my own personal writing style has been a nightmare for me. So reverse engineering prompting has been a powerful technique for me to get that done to a significant level of efficiency. And here's how I did it. So my prompt in this case is, act as a reverse prompt engineer. I have given you an output below. I want you to learn the style of writing, the length of the text, the grammar, and the feelings I used. Later on, I'll give you a similar new topic, and you'll have to write the text for that topic as well in a similar style. And then if I scroll down, you'll see the text that I provided is about how generative AI is changing and revolutionizing the world. A very small, brief passage that I had written. If you want to read more, you can pause and read in the video. So it comes back saying, I understood the text. You can give me the next topic to work on. And it's ready to give us a similar response on a new topic. The next topic is generative AI. Now we got our second output. Now if you pause and read through, you will realize that the new passage that ChatGPT wrote on generative AI follows the same style and tone that I provided in the example above. So it was able to capture my style to a certain extent. Now if you're specifically interested in writing with AI, then my video on writing with ChatGPT using prompt engineering will be very powerful for you, because there I talk about a specific workflow that I've created to create high quality content from ChatGPT for my copywriting needs. For now, let's move on to the next prompting technique, which will be sequential prompting. Now, sequential prompting is very similar to chain of thought prompting with a few added layers on top. Essentially, I can start with a very basic simple prompt. For instance, I can say, give me a YouTube posting calendar for a 4-week period. Now let's talk about the next prompting technique, sequential prompting. And here the idea is very similar to chain of thought prompting, but what we are doing extra here is we have added a few layers on top. What we're going to do is we're not only going to ask ChatGPT to provide a step-by-step plan or to provide the instructions step-by-step, but we will also ask it to make it a sequence. After each step, GPT is going to ask me if I'm okay with the output, and based on my confirmation, then it can move on to the next step. So it's like a sequence of events. Event B cannot happen unless event A has already occurred. So a very basic example would be creating a content calendar. So if you see here, I've said, give me a YouTube posting calendar for a 4-week period. Break the task into smaller steps, just like I would do with chain of thought prompting. But I've also said, confirm from me if the steps are okay. So I need a validation first of the steps that it will do. Then start performing the steps one by one. That's the next step that it needs to do. And make sure to ask me for each one if we are on the right track. So there is an element of validation and feedback here, which we don't see in chain of thought prompting. So now what I expect is ChatGPT will come up with a list of steps, ask me to validate them for it. And once I do, it will start performing each step and then asking for validation each time. So as expected, it came back asking me a bunch of questions about what kind of YouTube content I want to create and what is the audience I'm trying to attract. So based on the questions, I read through them and I came up with precise, small, concise answers for each one of them to keep the discussion ongoing. And after a little back and forth, we came up and decided the core topics that we're going to talk about, what the audience will be, and the scheduling and frequency. And based on that, I finally got a plan, and now I can dive into any one of them. For instance, I can say, let's do this today. For example, I can say, let's do this. And this is Monday, Tuesday research and script writing. What is generative AI introduction? And now it will start going into that specific topic and working with me on it. So this is the power of sequential prompting, where you're not only using the chain of thought prompting technique to break down your problem into steps, but you're also using the validation and feedback loop from the LLM to come back to you and ask you at each step if it's going into the right direction, so that you make the most out of the model. Now let's talk about the last prompting technique, which is signal prompting. Now this is very basic and simple. The idea here is to help you understand and develop an intuition behind how these large language models behave. So for instance, if I give it a very simple prompt saying list of vegetables, it creates a huge list of vegetables. And now if I say red, it's not a vegetable, but it gives me a list of red vegetables. So this is signaling. I am pushing the output, or I'm stirring the output in a specific direction by giving it a signal. Based on the previous prompt, if I said list of cars, it would have tweaked the output in the second prompt based on that. If I said list of foods, it would have given me the red foods that could apply. So just a basic idea to develop an intuition of how the model behaves. Lastly, I covered a few prompting techniques, but there are hundreds and hundreds of different ways that you can tweak a prompt to make the model work, just like you can do it with a work colleague or with your friend or with your peers. So play around with the model, ask it stupid questions, discuss your work, discuss God, discuss religion, discuss philosophy, and understand the kind of answers you get from 3.5 and 4 if you have the paid version. Because essentially, you don't need a list of prompting techniques and prompts to master ChatGPT. What you need to learn is to understand how ChatGPT thinks. These generative AI models think, but they have their own way of thinking. So once you understand that, you will be able to make the most out of these tools.